Welcome to the final briefings of the Integrative Capstone workshop in sustainability management. I'm George Sarah-Nicolau. I work at the Earth Institute and I teach one of these workshop classes. Tonight we'll hear briefings from student teams that have taken on projects from local and state governments and from some of the best known environmental organizations in the country. And so the workshop class is really like no other, right? Students get to apply all the knowledge that they've acquired in the program, to synthesize it, and to gain experience by working under the direction, sometimes alongside, sustainability practitioners. The other thing that most of you have done in the workshop class is practice teamwork. And so the 5 briefings that you'll hear tonight are all the product of that work. Let me just say a word about our format tonight. Again, there will be 5 presentations of 10 minutes each. We'll take a few questions after each presentation, and then there will be a 5-minute break, and I will call you back after that break. Now, because we are recording the session tonight, I'd like to ask you 2 things. First is to silence your cell phones, and the second is to use the microphone, whether you're presenting or asking a question from the audience. Okay, we're ready to go. The first presentation is Achieving Net Zero Site Energy in New York City. The client was the Natural Resources Defense Council, and the faculty advisor was Kizzy Charles Guzman. So I'd like to ask the first presenter to begin.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Cohen. My name is Matt Codner, and on behalf of my Capstone team and our faculty advisor, Kizzy Charles Guzman, I am pleased to present our plan for achieving net zero site energy in New York City, an implementation roadmap for the Natural Resources Defense Council. In the next 10 minutes, I will provide an overview of our project, methodology, data model, balance, review our recommended solutions, how we recommend to pay for them, and review potential challenges. Why is this project important? In the United States, a vast majority of our electricity is fossil fuel based, and buildings use about half of that energy. While Manhattan is increasingly proactive in energy efficient new construction, a commercial net zero retrofit has never been accomplished here. In the context of this information, NRDC, which is a highly effective environmental group, also a top-rated nonprofit, has asked us to develop a net zero strategy for their facility in Lower Manhattan. The timeline for the plan is 10 years, with a $5 million budget in addition to incentives, reinvestment, and financing. They asked us to favor solutions that are passive in nature and avoid the use of fossil fuels. The focus of our project is the top 7 floors of 40 West 20th Street, which cover just over 62,000 square feet. The New York Public Library owns the bottom 5 floors. NRDC has been proactive over the past few years. They've achieved the world's highest LEED commercial interiors rating for their 8th floor renovation, in addition developing an energy efficient data center, green roof plan, and installing a small solar array on the roof. Despite all of this incredible progress, there still remain great opportunities for improvement. For instance, they have a number 2 oil burning furnace in their basement. It accounts for 1/3 of the energy use in their building and runs entirely on fossil fuels. Given this scope, our first objective was to define net zero. There are several definitions, each with different implications. The National Renewable Energy Laboratory's net zero site energy proved appropriate for our project. This is defined as a building which produces and consumes the same amount of energy on site on an annual basis. NRDC's ability to achieve site net zero is in line with their core environmental purposes, while also proving the concept for an urban retrofit environment would pioneer a net zero retrofit movement for the city. With this definition and purpose in mind, we developed 17 criteria to review the technology by, including the advancement curve of technology over 10 years, finance mechanisms appropriate for tax-exempt organizations, and proven case studies with contextual similarities to this project. Within this framework, we went to work reviewing over 45 technologies, conducting 25 interviews with representatives from NRDC, in addition to architects, designers, engineers, manufacturers, and thought leaders worldwide. We reviewed over 125 case studies, finding ones as applicable to a retrofit urban environment and as similar climate to Manhattan as possible. We organized and vetted the information thoroughly and modeled it from an energy as well as a financial perspective, which I will now show you. Our data model benchmarks 2 years' worth of energy data, models incremental improvements based on our implementation plan, while accounting for relationships between mutual beneficial technologies, weather data, and compares the recommendations with standardized metrics. What you see here is our benchmark. The x-axis shows energy in kilowatt hours annually. The y-axis is years, 2010 through 2022. Assuming that all factors remain the same based off of the 2 years of data that we were provided by the client, with no efficiency or generation improvements and no increased load, based on the data we have, the building consumes 1.2 million kilowatt hours per year and produces about 2,000 kilowatt hours per year via the solar array on the roof. The blue line is consumption. The green line at the very bottom is the 2,000 produced by their current solar capacity. This is the gap that we need to close. Into that benchmark, we analyzed and projected 4 broad categories of solutions. Passive technologies, which maximize thermal efficiency without the use of external power. These include airflow design or insulation. Active efficiency technologies, using pumps, fans, or other equipments to achieve greater efficiency. And metering and behavior, providing enhanced information to occupants to encourage efficient behavior. And generation is the 4th one. Generation, we use methods using only renewable power. The end result is summarized in this graph. Energy, represented again on the y-axis in kilowatt hours per year, and years are on the x-axis, 2010 through 2022. Each technology implementation is shown as a colored bar. Light blue represents a passive technology, while dark blue is an active technology. These are the efficiency improvements. Green is generation. The key takeaway from this slide is that our research shows that this portfolio of solutions on the timeline proposed will reduce NRDC's annual net energy load to 375,000 kilowatt hours per year, represented by the star in the center. Also, we will increase generation to meet that same number around 2021. Energy consumed will match energy produced on site on that year, thus meeting the NREL's definition of site net zero. This diagram provides an overview of some of our solutions from roof to basement. Passive efficiency technologies, including exterior and interior insulation, along with active efficiency improvements, including electrical component replacement, lighting controls, and lighting upgrades, as well as geo-exchange. This is a technology which uses the constant temperature of the earth to baseline the heating and cooling. This sets the stage for the solar photovoltaics to power the space. The technology we recommend is an emerging technology known as concentrating PV. It magnifies the sun's energy onto the solar panel, providing greater energy with less real estate, quite appropriate for a roof in Manhattan. And then remember that number 2 oil-burning furnace that I mentioned earlier? In the past, it required 4 to 6 tank fill-ups of 2,000 gallons each per year. We found that with the efficiency that we modeled, furnace boiler heat will only be necessary on the absolute coldest days of the year. This means, and if the number of cold days remain more or less the same as they did in the previous 4 years that we modeled, a single tank of fuel could last for several years. We propose replacing that number 2 fossil fuel oil with biofuel derived from waste cooking oil. How much will all this cost? We built a financial model which analyzes the cash flow of each technology and assesses available rebates, reinvestment of cash flows, and simple finance mechanisms for capital-intensive improvements. The end result is, with financing, reinvestment, and incentives, shown by the blue line here, we can keep the project under $3 million. For illustrative purposes, we also provide here an all-in cost without finance, reinvestment, or incentives, which is the red line, and it puts the cumulative project total at around $5.75 million. As with any construction retrofit project estimate, especially in the city of New York that spans 10 years, there are risks that site conditions may differ from the information analyzed. We used only the most conservative data in our model, but there still remains risk that technology may develop at a different rate from available projections. Additionally, things like permits and zoning and the laws that govern them can change over the 10-year horizon, affecting the implementation. Additionally, labor and material rates are subject to change, in addition to rebates and incentive rates. In conclusion, our recommendations and extensive research and modeling show that through retrofit, NRDC can achieve site net zero in under 10 years for a net cost of under $5 million at the Manhattan headquarters. Targeting net zero using this plan will further NRDC's reputation as a global pioneer in urban energy efficiency, improving on their already exemplary reputation as a leading environmental advocacy organization. The solutions presented on this roadmap show that net zero is achievable, not only in new construction and non-urban environments, but also in the highest density urban settings. When fully implemented, this proof of concept could serve as the catalyst for other site net zero retrofits across New York City and in similar urban environments. As such, NRDC can set an example leading to substantial reduction of fossil fuel consumption well beyond 40 West 20th Street. Thank you. I invite your questions. Oh, go ahead.
Hi. On slide 12, you assume, I guess, that the energy efficiencies are additive, but as you add new energy efficiency measures, why don't you assume that there's diminishing return?
Like I mentioned before, the model takes into effect mutually supporting technologies. So for instance, we looked at two different installation techniques, which if you simply added them up as cumulative, the math wouldn't work out. But our model takes those into consideration, and we do take into effect diminishing returns, but it's well into the spreadsheet in order to really show you those details. And I'd be happy to show them to you if you'd like to see them.
Thank you.
Hello. Were you guys able to talk to anyone from the New York City Department of Buildings to see if you guys were possibly violating anything? I mean, there seems to be a lot of new technology involved.
We reviewed all of the pertinent permits and information. We are not violating any laws. I think you know Code Green. The Code Green laws went into effect in May of 2012, which allow for permitting of certain technologies, including the exterior insulation coming over the easement line. So there's a number of, yes, we did review all of the pertinent information with regard to city planning. Yes.
This sounds like a great presentation, a lot of technologies used in there. Were there any technologies that you considered and finally rejected?
Tons. I think about half of them made it into the actual recommendation. But in our appendix of the report, which will be available online in about a week, there's a number of technologies that just simply couldn't make it out because they were outcompeted by other technologies. Some of these included wind turbines, exercise bikes that generate electricity. There was a number of innovative and cutting-edge things that we looked at but didn't make it into the final recommendation. Thanks for asking. Thank you.
The next project blends urban ecology and business strategy. It's a business plan for the Healthy Urban Tree Initiative in New York City. The client was the Nature Conservancy, and the faculty advisor was Dr. Bob Cook. I'd like to ask Davida to come up.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. My name is Davida Heller, and I am representing the Capstone workshop team that created a business plan for the Nature Conservancy's Healthy Urban Tree Initiative. At the request of our client, our business plan focuses on the strategies for marketing this new initiative. First, a bit of background. Our client is the United States charity, the Nature Conservancy. It's a leading conservation organization responsible for protecting more than 119 million acres of land and 5,000 miles of rivers worldwide. The Nature Conservancy has started a new initiative called the Healthy Urban Tree Initiative. And tonight, I will take you through the key components of our project deliverable, a business plan for this initiative. I'll make the case for the new initiative by demonstrating the increasing need for an organization to protect our urban trees. I'll provide an analysis of the urban tree situation and recommend where the initiative should expend its efforts. I'll take you through our strategy for raising awareness of the benefits of trees through an integrated marketing plan. Then we'll go through the budget, our fundraising plan, a monitoring plan for assessing the management of the initiative, and a 5-year work plan for the implementation. So now on to making the case. Let's start with the big picture. So the current world population is at 7 billion and climbing. According to the United Nations, the population will increase to over 9 billion by 2050, with 75% of those people living in cities. This population growth will further strain the local environments and will increase demands for urban ecosystem services from trees. Thus, the Nature Conservancy, which up till this point has been focusing on rural areas, needs to move into cities for their relevance to endure in an era of urbanization. Another driver is the current state of trees in the United States. 25% of trees are in cities, and we're losing 4 million trees a year. This is due to natural disaster situations such as Hurricane Sandy. This is also from building homes, other government projects, and also invasive plant and pest species. For example, local governments and homeowners spend $4.5 billion a year in pest control. Those images show you the urban canopy degradation in Washington, D.C. between 1973 and 1997, to give you a sense of the detrimental effect. So why do we care? Well, trees actually mitigate the anthropomorphic effects that go on, and this is a comparison between those effects from cities on the environment and from trees. So trees actually help with energy reduction. About tree canopy, due to evapotranspiration, reduces outside temperatures about 2 to 9 degrees. As far as carbon sequestration, trees actually sequester about 24 million tons of carbon per year, and overall, urban trees in the United States are storing over 700 million tons. As far as pollution, trees absorb about 784,000 tons of pollution a year, and they also help with the stormwater retention and reduce the deterioration of street pavement damage. So the Healthy Urban Tree Initiative was designed by the Nature Conservancy to target tree planting, stewardship, and pest detection. While many aspects of our business plan can be applied nationally, every city is unique. And so we designed a tool, a questionnaire, to help cities actually determine their priorities. The main areas are targeting their audience, feasibility of tree planting, need for stewardship, and need for pest detection. So taking New York City, which is the pilot city for the initiative, we're targeting young professionals. We're actually going to be supporting existing tree planting programs because organizations like the New York Restoration Project are already in place and managing tree planting for the city. But in New York, tree stewardship will be a really important focus, as there aren't really any organizations that are focused on that right now, but the Nature Conservancy can partner with local organizations and schools to do programs for tree stewardship. There is a great need for pest detection, considering the Asian longhorn beetle as an example, which has come over from China, and the Nature Conservancy is very concerned about any new outbreaks coming from that. So the Nature Conservancy wanted us to adopt and employ a theory of change approach to the project. And with this, we started with our problem and the community needs. So it's addressing the loss of tree canopy and the fact that people don't really understand the benefits of trees, and the community needs are the need for green spaces and also healthier habitats. So the next step is actually determining what our desired results are, and that is enhancing the tree canopy and increasing awareness. And then you decide on the strategy. So we decided to implement an integrated marketing plan and a membership plan. So we really wanted to come up with a tagline that would encompass what we felt was so important about the Healthy Urban Tree Initiative in our strategy. And we developed this Extend Your Roots, which really encompassed for us the message of the initiative. And we went out and brought it to focus groups and our colleagues, and everyone really felt that the message resonated with them. And we asked them to identify words with the tagline, and we were really happy and impressed with the responses that we got back, because this is exactly the message that we want to get out there as far as sharing, empowerment, and community. So we took Extend Your Roots and applied it to our integrated marketing plan. And here are a couple of examples. So for our digital component of the marketing plan, we are recommending creating a website, Facebook campaign to connect people that are involved on the local level, and then also nationwide, and also contests like an Instagram picture contest for people to be involved. As far as an out-of-home campaign for subways and tree posters, something to really get the message of the value of trees and also the shared diversity that trees have, as well as the citizens of New York. And as far as buzz, we really capitalize on the events that happen in our parks all the time, and as well integrate the message of Extend Your Roots into Earth Day events and other events that are environmental in tone. So in addition to creating these components, we can also apply these tools to different market segments. So for example, with digital, when you look at just social media and apps, these can be applied to different markets according to their communication methods, their interests. And for social media, we would primarily target, most of our market segments, but as far as apps, like for smartphone or computers, that would be more for young professionals and communities that we would target it. As far as our budget, this is a budget for New York, so it's a little higher than what we would do for other cities, as New York is the pilot project. So again, just to give you a sense of a particular area for digital, which is a primary component that we'll be focusing on, $120,000 is being allocated, and we're also indicating in our budget the marketing objective and the conservation driver. So we can see what objectives each of our tools have. As far as fundraising is concerned, TNC is really good at fundraising. So they already have about $460 million a year that they raise as far as donations, and $150 million through government grants. So through direction from our client, we're really focusing on membership, as we see a really huge opportunity as the Healthy Tree Initiative moves into cities across the country. So for example, for our target of young professionals, considering their interest in the environment and discretionary income, we see a real opportunity to create a more in-depth membership plan for about $250 a year that would include speakers, breakfasts, events, day trips, galas, but something that along the lines of Extend Your Roots really creates community and networking opportunities. So in order to measure the success of the initiative, we put together performance metrics that can measure the quantitative success on an ongoing basis that we can then utilize on in more qualitative assessments. So public involvement, canopy management, and financials are the targets that we are looking at for our assessment tool. And then lastly, our work plan is a 5-year work plan that focuses both on national and local efforts. The groundwork is going to be done by national in the first year. And this is just to show you in more detail exactly those how it works. So in year 1, you can see the steps that will be taken in each quarter, whereas we'll first be defining the mission, the budget, securing funding and staff, and then launching the site and moving on from there. So we look forward to helping the Nature Conservancy with their initiative. Any questions?
Hi. As you were talking about your actually marketing plan and specifically the need to really for people to understand the problem, how does education kind of fit into that overall marketing?
So we've designed actually education kits for a number of different groups, anywhere from more scientific education kits for schools to be conducted with like science classes, to anything from more like adult groups as far as reading clubs or running clubs, exercise groups, to help everyone get involved in tree stewardship and planting and pest detection.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Okay, our next project was about reducing climate risks to the transportation network. The client was the New York State Department of Transportation, and the faculty advisor was Suzanne DeRoche. I'd like to ask Christine to present.
Thank you, George. And good evening, everyone. My name is Christine Stern, and I'm here to present on behalf of my Capstone team and also under the leadership of Suzanne DeRoche. Tonight's presentation, Adaptation to Climate Change, Green Stormwater Management for Communities Across New York State. This evening, I will provide an overview of our client. I will also talk about why stormwater is exacerbated by climate change, and particularly how our project is an effort to address this issue. I'm going to present our approach and our recommendations to empower communities to increase their stormwater management capacity. Our client is New York State Department of Transportation, or DOT for short, and they have a network of roads, bridges, facilities, thousands of acres that support the transport needs of New York City, not New York City, but New York's 19 million residents and New York's $1.9 trillion economy. DOT is concerned about stormwater in light of climate change because projected precipitation will change and impact these DOT assets, as well as cause other challenges. The New York State Climate Report projects an increase in intense precipitation events with a likelihood of greater than 66%. But this is only part of the story. In this graph, you can see the blue line descending from left to right, and it's showing a decrease in the return period of 100-year storms. A return period is really just that interval between events. The Northeast Regional Climate Center has already estimated that 100-year storms have reduced from a 1% chance of being exceeded in 1 year to now a 1.4% chance. Simultaneously, we see this red line, which is really showing the amount of rain or the intensity of rain in this 100-year storm. And simply stated, really, this graph is just saying more intense 100-year storms more frequently. These projections are a concern to DOT because more precipitation means more stormwater, which if not managed properly can have harmful effects. But specifically, you can see along the top, DOT assets could be affected by scoured bridges, rutted roadways, ultimately meaning more maintenance and repair. In addition, stormwater disrupts the transportation of people and goods, causing over $1 billion of economic losses in every extreme storm weather event. Here on the left, this actually happened this year. This is the Grand Central Parkway in Queens, where 2 inches of rain fell in 2 hours, stopping traffic and stranding passengers. The center photo here is showing us Morris County, New Jersey, and this is really a safety issue where after Hurricane Irene, the road actually collapsed. Finally, there's also environmental impacts, and it's not just affecting humans, but also non-humans alike, both making water undrinkable and destroying aquatic life. Which brings us to our Capstone project. Our Capstone project is really addressing these problems and provides a potential solution. New York communities and DOT are really interdependent partners in either increasing stormwater or decreasing it. And so really the objective of this project is to develop a compendium report that focuses on green infrastructure. Green infrastructure is an innovative way to manage stormwater through utilizing natural systems or engineered systems that are really mimicking those natural processes. The natural process, they clean, they cleanse, and they reduce the amount of stormwater by using soils and plants. This is opposed to our typical process, which we refer to as gray infrastructure, which is conventional pipe drainage to water treatment. It's important to note that green infrastructure, while can reduce stormwater, it's really not intended to handle storm surge. Ultimately, we are delivering a document and an outreach plan to really educate community members across the state to affect how they can think about implementing green infrastructure within their communities. Our methodology to achieve this goal was really 3 phases. First, data collection, then analysis, and then finally synthesis. For our first step, data collection, we had our group extensively review climate reports, literature, case studies, and conducted interviews. Our second step, we analyzed this information and came up with the following first set of strategies. Here we have bioretention, swales, street trees, and pervious surfaces. All these strategies can be implemented near existing roadways or in conjunction with the construction of new roadways. These strategies are all related in that they encourage water infiltration into underground water stores. Here are more selected strategies. Being at Columbia, you're likely familiar with green roofs, as we have a few. Rain gardens, rain barrels, green space, land preservation, and then there's a picture of Staten Island's Blue Belt, which a Blue Belt is just a natural drainage corridor. These strategies actually limit the amount of stormwater that reaches roads by intercepting and retaining it, and is implemented not necessarily in conjunction with roads. Our third and final step was to synthesize this information into an easily understood yet influential report. For the purposes of this presentation, I'm just going to discuss one strategy, but this is the layout of our report. So the one strategy I'm going to focus on is pervious pavement, which can replace traditional paving surfaces to allow stormwater to flow to subsoil and disperse stormwater similar to a natural system. Again, this is the idea of instead of concentrating it like a regular paving surface, it's actually moving down into that subsoil. The key considerations are shown on the left and then case study on the right, and again, this is throughout the guidebook. In this particular case study, Carrollton Place in Buffalo, New York, installed pervious pavement and was actually able to capture enough stormwater so that a planned sewer separation project, estimated at $1.5 million, was unnecessary. We also created a graphical tool to provide a snapshot of all the green infrastructure strategies, really set next to each other so you can provide easy comparison. There are 9 metrics along the top, things like cost, lifetime, or secondary benefits. The circles represent good, better, and best, with good being in white, better being in gray, and best being in black. And again, this is in comparison to the other strategies on this tool. You can read the tool by looking down a column and looking for the black circles, or you can read it by row to get more information for a particular strategy. In this case, we're going to drill into pervious pavement. Here, looking at pervious pavement, one of the things that naturally stands out is the black circle, and that's really the maintenance budget. So if you're a municipality that maybe has some money for capital investment but doesn't have a lot of money for maintenance, this could be a good strategy for you. We can see that the maintenance cost is less than 20 cents per square foot per year. Each strategy performed well, but in different categories, but there was not one overarching, this is the strategy that's going to work for everyone. But ultimately, what we're trying to do is equip decision makers across the state to really evaluate what their local vulnerabilities are and really help them select the best strategy for their town given their particular specifications. But with that being said, there were 2 strategies that stood out. One was pervious pavement, and the other was blue belts. And the one item to mention with blue belts is it does require a lot of space, but here's kind of the highlight of these 2 strategies. So our report remains current. We also included emerging stormwater regulation and technologies. We identified this through interviews, patent search, working with library subject matter experts. And to give you an example for the regulation piece, Washington, D.C. has proposed within their community a stormwater retention credit trading scheme. And to give you some examples of some of the technologies, these were the things that we found through the methods I had mentioned. Finally, we equipped DOT with an outreach plan with really 5 main points. And the idea is that this is going to help them contact decision makers so that these decision makers could use this tool within their community in this report. We identified relevant media and bloggers. We profiled receptive audiences, including governments as well as planning organizations similar to the Central New York Regional Planning and Development Board. We also identified target officials and organizations referenced in the report. Ultimately, the vision of the report is that we will reach a variety of stakeholders across the state, ranging from mayors to road managers, really resulting in better stormwater management. Our hope is that the stormwater runoff will be transformed from really burdening our sewer systems to instead recharging groundwater and helping New York State to become a more resilient community. Thank you. And I'm happy to take questions.
Hello. So you mentioned very briefly at the end about sewage. So that's actually kind of a big issue because a lot of the systems here are dual systems. Since it was only just really addressed at the end, which one of these methods would actually really address that problem?
So actually, the hope is that you're not going to be able to do all green infrastructure or all gray infrastructure, but the hope with this approach is that you'll not only be able to reduce the amount of stormwater that is flowing into a sewer because it's getting captured, for example, in a bioswale or in Staten Island, like the Blue Belt, but the idea is also with the amount of rapid flow at one point in time. So even if you can retain it for a period until the storm is over, that has huge benefit to not dealing with this combined sewer overflow situation. So if you look at our matrix, we do have kind of this capture rate piece, which ultimately we see in this green space, land acquisition, and blue belts, they're certainly going to be able to capture a lot more. But the idea is that it's one capability amongst others to really help reduce that stormwater.
So I think these are all great suggestions, and I see street trees, and it makes me think about the trees and forest that line highways. And a lot of times those forests are not very well maintained by townships, and I wondered if you addressed that at all in your report.
Yeah, so we actually, with our conversations with DOT, one of the things that they brought up, even though it was somewhat ancillary to these green infrastructure strategies, was really maintenance prior to a storm can have huge effect on a community. So we included, there's a report dealing with transportation in climate change era, and so there was a great 10-step process of which we included that talks about everything from like managing drains, but also kind of making sure that these green infrastructures that are set up can work properly. So yeah, we included that in our appendix.
Thank you.
Yep.
This is the final presentation of the evening. This one is about sustainability and natural hazards, about which you heard a bit earlier. There were multiple clients. The Environmental Protection Agency, the Federal Emergency Management Agency, the City of Syracuse, and Onondaga County. And I was the faculty advisor, and Erin McNally is going to tell you how we dealt with 4 clients. Erin.
Okay, good evening, everybody. So as George just told you all, my name's Erin McNally. And tonight I'll be presenting on behalf of my group our project that we completed this semester for our capstone. Hurricane Sandy has driven home the pertinence of our capstone project more than any of us wanted by demonstrating that our desire for economic growth is often at odds with natural hazards. Our clients, the Federal Emergency Management Agency and the Environmental Protection Agency, asked us to investigate this issue. So throughout this semester we've been asking ourselves, how can we create resilient, sustainable communities that allow us to develop economically while also accounting for the risk of natural hazards? Tonight, I'll walk you through a little bit more about this problem, the solution that our clients asked us to work through, how sustainability can be used as a tool for integration, and the recommendations for our clients. So how does this problem arise? We've been looking at 2 different types of plans throughout this semester. On the one hand, we've been looking at land use plans that are typically geared towards short-term economic growth. On the other hand, we've also been looking at hazard mitigation plans, which seek to reduce a community's long-term exposure to natural disasters such as flooding. Ideally, these plans would reconcile the short and long-term needs of communities. But as it turns out, there is often little or no coordination between those who plan for hazards and those who work on land use. As a result, communities might develop in a floodplain with their eyes set on the goal of short-term economic growth. But if this development does not take into account the risk of flooding, the potential for long-term economic growth is threatened. Sustainability can bridge the gap between hazard mitigation and local land use planning. As I'll explain, sustainability can help a community meet its economic development goals and deal with hazards. The goal is not necessarily to relocate outside of a floodplain, but to promote the sustainable development of a resilient community within the floodplain in a way that can reduce the damage from flooding. This approach decreases the community's physical and economic vulnerability, increases resilience, and improves overall environmental performance. Our clients, FEMA and the EPA, recognize the benefits of integrating land use planning and hazard mitigation. Our clients asked us to focus on Syracuse, New York, and surrounding Onondaga County that had to agree to participate in a federal pilot project on hazard mitigation and land use. Our clients asked us to do 3 things. The first thing they wanted us to do was to develop a methodology that any municipality across the United States could use if they wanted to account for hazards in their land use decisions. In order to develop this methodology, our clients asked us to look at Syracuse and Onondaga County to see if and how the local land use plans overlooked or conflicted with the findings of the county's hazard mitigation plan. The third and final component of our project was the development of a sustainability strategies resource guide that could be used by flood-prone communities to reconcile conflicts between hazard mitigation and land use. Our methodology has a few steps, starting with identifying hazards and ending with integrating hazard mitigation through sustainability. As an example of our methodology in action, I'm going to walk you through an analysis of Syracuse to give you a sense of the process that a local land use planner would take to incorporate hazard risks and hazard mitigation measures into sustainable land use decisions. Hazard mitigation plans assess the risk posed by a large number of natural hazards, ranging from tornadoes to flooding. If you want to integrate hazard mitigation into your land use decisions, it is first important for land use planners to determine which hazards pose the greatest risk for their area. In the area that we analyzed, riverine flooding poses the greatest risk to land use. So our analysis focused on the 100-year floodplain. We also decided to focus specifically on Syracuse because that's where there is the highest density of both people and buildings within the county. According to the hazard mitigation plan, the estimated cost of building replacement following a 100-year flood event in Syracuse is $167 million, or a quarter of the city's annual budget. Now that we understand the risks for the city, we wanted to understand what the land use plans say about development that's occurring within the floodplain. And we found that the city wants to revitalize its downtown with redevelopment and new development along an area called the Creek Walk. Both the county and the city see the Creek Walk as a vibrant mixed-use economic destination. But as you can see on the map, this development falls directly within the floodplain. The problem is the lack of coordination at the local level. None of the flood risk information in the city's hazard mitigation plan is included in their land use plans. And as a result, the land use plans offer no strategies or guidelines for developing the Creek Walk in a truly sustainable way. There are some sustainability strategies that are included in the development plans for the Creek Walk. These strategies are primarily green infrastructure strategies, but these strategies are only mentioned as measures to improve water quality, and there's no mention of the additional benefit that green infrastructure strategies can provide for flood mitigation. This is a demonstration of what a building along the Creek Walk might look like if its development was guided by land use plans that address the risk of flooding. The design of this hypothetical mixed-use building incorporates sustainability strategies that we have pulled from the resource guide that we developed for our clients. Some of these strategies include green infrastructure, such as swales and pervious pavement. In our scenario, an engineering study would be conducted to determine the appropriate scale and placement of such strategies so that they provide not only benefits for water quality improvement, but also flood mitigation. There are also a number of strategies that can be used on the interior of your building, such as water-resistant interior finishes, and locating all gas lines, electrical, and mechanical equipment above the 100-year flood levels. Keep in mind that a resilient building is one that is better able to adapt and respond to flooding than a conventional building, but using these strategies is by no means a guarantee that the building won't flood or that flooding won't cause damage. Our resource guide also includes policy strategies and financial resources. An example of a policy that can be used to reduce the impacts of flooding is a reservoir drawdown, by which, in anticipation of a storm, you can reduce the water level in the reservoir so it can act as a sort of bathtub to hold stormwater. In terms of financial resources, funding for the implementation of sustainability strategies comes largely from federal grant programs that support a number of strategies, including dense development with access to public transportation. Based on our analysis, we have come up with a number of recommendations for our clients. First and foremost, we think that our clients really need to encourage local communities to plan and prepare for disasters before they happen. There is also a strong need for plans to reference one another. Otherwise, there is little chance that local government will coordinate and integrate the plans. Both hazard mitigation plans and land use plans should include language that link sustainability, hazard mitigation, and land use. And finally, what we really want is for those who work on land use and those who work on hazard mitigation to talk to each other and collaborate on solutions. FEMA and the EPA can facilitate this by setting up regional or hazard-specific educational workshops that focus on how to use sustainability as a tool to integrate hazard mitigation and land use planning. Our hope is that our work over this semester will provide our clients with a starting point for a much larger effort that will eventually result in resilient, sustainable communities across the nation. Thank you.
Thank you. It was a brilliant presentation. In the arena of creek flooding, you were addressing, it seemed like mostly what was happening within Syracuse itself. What about the upstream communities and the need for Syracuse to work in concert with upstream communities to develop comprehensive plans that would work with those? Did you have an opportunity to delve into that at all?
We didn't go too much into detail about that. We do recognize that it's an issue. So throughout our work and our interactions with our clients, we've highlighted the need for there to be coordination across all levels of government, which is what made our project really interesting, because we worked with federal government, FEMA, and the EPA, and we were also speaking with planners from both the county and the city, and we looked at plans, comprehensive plans and sustainable development plans from the county and the city.
Hello.
Hello.
Just curious, did you guys look at the financial implications of your recommendations for your clients and try to figure out where that funding would be coming from?
Right, so we didn't actually go into that much detail about the financials of everything. We were tasked more with developing a methodology, which does include, as land use planners go through, we've suggested that they conduct a cost-benefit analysis to determine which strategies are most beneficial or make most sense for them. But we didn't specifically do any financial analyses ourselves.
Last question.
Thank you, and wonderful presentation. My question is, will your sustainability or your sustainability resources guide be available to everyone, or how is that going to be rolled out?
Yes, that's the idea, and we haven't had our final meeting with our clients yet, but the idea was that The methodology that we've developed can be used by land use planners in tandem with the Sustainability Strategies Resource Guide. So while they're going through the steps that we've suggested, they can also look towards our Sustainability Resource Guide to see what kind of strategies they can think about using and determine what's best for them and most economically and socially beneficial.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so this is the part of the agenda where I give my closing remarks. I'd like to say that over the last couple of hours, we've seen, I think, 5 really strong presentations about 5 very good projects. Before I let you go, I'd like to recognize my colleagues in the program who worked with these students throughout this semester. So Kizzy Charles Guzman, Suzanne DeRoche, Louise Rosen, and Bob Cook. The jargon for what we did tonight is proof of concept. And I think we proved a couple of things. One is that the Capstone is a really powerful learning experience for the students. And all of you who are graduating from the Sustainability Management Program are well prepared to take on these really complex, difficult issues in the real world. With that, I'd like to ask you all to give a round of applause to yourselves for all this hard work. Congratulations.